Whether it's bad planning, bad luck, bad timing, or bad inventions, well-intentioned bad decisions have plagued history for thousands of years. Welcome to Historic Hindsight. Hello and welcome to Historic Hindsight. I'm John, that's Tom. Today we're going to talk to you about stupid weapons from the Axis powers of World War II.
Yeah, we decided that we talked about Allied weapons. Now it's time for the stupid Nazi and Japanese weapons of World War II. Although I preface this with, I'm not talking about fictional weapons that Hitler thought would be a good idea, because those are really ridiculous and out there, like a solar paneled mirror that would shoot a death ray down to the United States. Like that shit.
And wipe out the entire United States all at once?
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good idea.
That's a good idea, but it didn't actually ever get made.
The logistics were a problem?
A little bit. We're going with actual things that were produced.
Okay, so this is something that at very least had test runs done.
Yes,
they
exactly.
had a working prototype.
Yes,
okay,
exactly. So the very first thing that we got to talk about is the wind cannon, or Windkanon, which is the artificial tornado vortex cannon, which was developed as part of the Nazi Wunderwaffe, which is their wonder weapons.
Yeah, no,
program.
this is smart. I've used these in video games. It just shoots out a full-on tornado and lifts up whatever is in your way and takes it away.
Yep.
Was that actually it?
That's Johnny. You're not far off.
I mean, it's a brilliant weapon. It works so well in all the games I've used it in.
Yeah. So the goal of the project was to use artificial tornadoes or wind turbulence to destroy aircraft. Because that seems like a more logical thing as opposed to like shooting up shrapnel. But
like
whatever.
maybe a rocket. Yeah. Instead, they're gonna try to make it windier for the airplanes.
We're gonna make it windier for the airplanes as opposed to shooting up shrapnel or rockets. Because that's crazy. So there were two models that were conceived. The first model was the wind cannon, which was developed at the Stuttgart facility, while the vortex cannon itself was developed by Mario Zipperman. There's Zippermeyer. Yeah, I'm drunk and it's a German name, so I'm gonna botch it. So Zippermeyer was an Austrian physicist. He would invent the vacuum bomb that was used. It would take the surrounding oxygen from a target and use that to generate a high temperature explosion. So you'd have a miniature explosion that would use the oxygen to make it bigger.
Okay, that's cool,
not bad. Yeah, it's kind of cool actually. After the war, he maintained his facilities at Hochtal and eagerly answered any questions that his research would provide for any of the providing parties. So whether it was Russian or Americans.
Cannons work?
Well, we'll get there, Johnny. Hold on. So
that's all. I'm just curious about those.
So when Russia and the United States invaded, he would answer all their questions, and surprisingly, he was not actually absorbed by either the Soviet Union or the United States post-war, because nobody really gave a shit about his vortex cannon, because they're like, look, you're a little bit out there for us.
No, because he had wacky ideas, probably. It's probably like, oh, I'm this brilliant mind, I can do all this stuff. It's like, but none of that works.
You can go ahead and stay home.
So you're fine. This interview has gone poorly. We've learned no new information.
So we're not going to bring you over to the United States or to Russia. Keep in mind, we brought. It doesn't matter how many war crimes you committed.
Oh, man,
we would bring you over.
All the scientists, yeah.
Yeah. So the wind cannon itself was a 3-foot diameter cast iron tube, which was 30 feet in length. Wow. 35 feet in length.
Okay.
It's huge.
That's a narrow pole for 30. It seems like a
3-foot diameter, John.
No, I understand what a diameter is, but for something that long, and I mean, you're gonna be
that's
shooting
a narrow hole.
I feel like you want a bigger tornado.
Yeah, well, this is just the wind cannon. This isn't the vortex.
Okay, we're not down to the tornado.
This is wind cannon. It was packed with hydrogen and ammonia to create a blast of compressed air. And the idea was that the compressed air would create turbulence that would knock the plane out of the air. It didn't really work, though, Johnny.
So you know what this turned into? You know that they make toys that are about a foot or 18 inches in diameter that you can pull something back and let go, and it shoots a little cannon of air.
They made
That's literally all they made. on a large scale. They made like a one that was like 3 times the scale or something.
That is exactly what they made.
And I'll bet it was every bit as effective.
Well, a little bit more, because when it was tested, it would be able to shoot a gust of air that was capable of destroying a small building. However, even small wooden planes traveling at very slow speeds at low altitude could somehow withstand this one single blast of air.
I'm guessing they shot the buildings from like 10 feet away.
Oh, guaranteed.
And the planes from hundreds, and didn't take into account that, I don't know, wind resistance is a thing when you're firing wind.
Or you're shooting a blast of air at a building that's not wind resistant versus a plane that is wind resistant. That needs the wind
to go over.
Yeah.
Good God! All right. So his little
wind
pop
cannon.
A shot wind cannon obviously wasn't enough to do any sort of impact.
Not quite.
But he made it. Is a tornado maker a different thing?
We'll get there. So at the wind cannon itself was a 35-foot pipe, super easy to spot from the air, making it a extremely easy target to either avoid or destroy. Because hey, look, there's this huge gigantic thing on the ground. Maybe we bomb it, or maybe we don't fly at 5 miles an hour over it.
Or guys, just don't get within 15 feet of it. And you should be okay.
It was said by one of the testers that a shotgun with birdshot would be far more effective of a tool to shoot down a plane than that.
That's excellent.
Zippermeyer's Vortex gun was a little bit more effective. It was a large bore mortar that was buried in the ground, so at least it was hideable.
Hidden.
Yeah.
Okay.
It used coal dust and slow burning explosives to coal dust.
Okay.
And a slow burning explosive. So
okay. Yeah.
Like modern gunpowder outside of a contained cartridge.
Mm-hmm.
And that would work at turning a turbine.
Okay. So yeah.
That turbine would in turn turn glowing gas ball into the atmosphere and creating a tornado.
Heat, hot air, spinning it and kicking it up.
Yeah, because the turbine would get cold air from the atmosphere, hot air from the ground. It would create a tornado. And it did that. It legitimately created a tornado. The intent was that the shell would explode, creating a small fake tornado that would knock the plane out of the air. The problem with this whole idea was that this tornado was only capable of reaching 300 meters into the air. And
almost about 1,000 feet,
yes, give or take. And that that it was capable of destroying a wood building at 150 meters away. So
okay, all right.
If within half the total distance of the entire
if the plane happens to fly through that for a sustained period of time that's long enough for it to get destroyed.
However,
it might work.
However, a plane flying at plane speed wouldn't really be affected by this tornado, not to mention the fact that a B-17 bomber of the U.S. would fly at an altitude of 10,000 feet or 3,048 meters, so well above whatever would possibly be being shot at.
Yeah, just 10 times. Throw potatoes up at it.
You might as well. It would have been just as effective. It would have been just as effective. So, needless to say, the air vortex cannon or the wind cannon was not an effective
tool. Turns out
weaponizing
wind is a lot harder than it seems like it should be.
Yeah. So my next thing for you, Johnny, today is the Japanese guided rocket aircraft. Oh. It was developed by the Aeronautical Research Institute of Imperial Japan.
This sounds like a missile that someone sits in.
Is that what it is? It is a missile that somebody sits in.
What?
The official designation is the Yakuza MKY-7 Hoka.
Okay.
Nicknamed the Cherry Blossom, which is what Oka means in Japanese. It was a purpose-built, rocket-powered, human-guided kamikaze aircraft.
So they're like, all right, guys, listen. You've been doing great flying your planes into shit. But we've designed something better.
You just fly your plane into shit.
Not only is it a last resort, it's an only resort because you are going to just steer this rocket from inside of it into whatever we tell you.
Yep.
Really,
Johnny, you've said this so many times before in a podcast, but this is, if you don't care about human life, anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
This is 100% what this was.
You pile these suckers into these little rockets. My God. Like, how happy must the drone operators be
At this point? Yeah,
these
right.
days? Like, we're doing the exact same thing, except from not inside of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Except from, like, the comfort of
Well, and not
home
even,
base.
we're not crashing the drone into the target. We're shooting missiles from the drone
Right,
to the
yeah,
target.
yeah.
So it's even better.
So, yeah, you don't even have to, it's not even, like,
The
you
drone's
can
still
come
fine.
back.
The drone comes back. It was designed by Ensign Mitsu Ota with the help of students from the Aeronautical Research Institute. So basically, like Hanover students. Hey, you guys want to come up with a missile that's human guided to kill things?
Do you think maybe he didn't tell them all the details and like they just like accidentally created this? He's like, guys, we need to make this rocket. All right, everything's gonna be fine. Oh, we need a just
A guidance system
empty space, just empty space right here. Why do we
with some
need it?
controls
Just don't
for
worry about it. No,
somebody
just,
to.
yeah, just fine. Just maybe for practice, if somebody just could sit in it to steer it.
You might not be that far off, Johnny. Mitsu naturally himself would not man any of these vehicles
Yeah,
himself.
don't say.
Weird, but the technology expert of the War Ministry would deem that, like, hey, you know what? This has got merit. If we don't care about human life, fuck it.
Which, I mean, they've already have kamikaze pilots, so they've already decided that, the greater good is more important than the individuals. So
yeah,
they made their decision.
They did.
So coming from that mentality, this is a really, really good idea.
Yeah, they did make their decision. Mitsu himself would actually be given the commendation, would survive the war and go on to live post-war, and he would be given the commendation for distinguished service to the preservation of environmental energy by Japan in 2000, because obviously he decided to save the environment by killing a bunch of people with his human-guided rocket missile.
Killed enough people that he altered the environment and saved.
I guess.
Or something.
He was.
So this is like the
Japan gave him basically the PETA award in 2000.
Oh, it's kind of like the Genghis Khan, how much he did for the good of the earth, like for as far as his carbon, like he decreased the carbon footprint
by
during the
killing
time
everybody.
because he killed everybody.
Pretty much, yep.
So you get rid of everybody, and Earth does better.
Yeah, right. So the Oka missile itself was a rocket-propelled glider plane that would be carried underneath the Mitsubishi G4 M2E Model 24J Betty bomber. So you'd have a bomber carrying this self-guided glider underneath it.
Okay. So it's not even just like I guess it's not even a plane. It's
a glider.
Yeah, but they don't have engines or anything. So it's not even like a missile or a rocket. It's just a glider
it has bottle rockets on it, Johnny.
Thrusters?
Thrusters.
If you
it has essentially just 4 bottle rockets on it. Exactly. So once within range, the missile, quote unquote, would be released initially under the own glider's power. When the glider pilot would determine a target of interest, he would kick up those 3 solid fuel rockets, solid fuel, so literally gigantic bottle rockets, and then crash itself at the target.
All right.
So the Imperial Japanese Navy deemed the idea to have merit and first began test flights in October 1944, with a powered flight being conducted in 1944.
At any point, do you think somebody suggested an ejector seat?
No.
No. Like maybe just get it close and then pop yourself out of there and parachute down.
They did not, Johnny. This was a human-guided kamikaze. You're in it to the end.
Thank you.
We can't get people to work at McDonald's in the United States. How do they get people to get in the plane and be like, knowingly, I'm going to crash this into something and die?
Well, I mean, thanks for your service, kid. You're doing something great for your country.
I guess.
You know what? That's how they do it. They get people who are younger than 20 and don't know the value of life.
I guess. So the blueprint itself was immediately drawn up, and production started with the Model 11 being the only variant to actually see combat. Model 11, Johnny. So there was 10 models
10
before
before
it.
that didn't go so well, huh?
Didn't go so well. It was a
Probably too higher survival rate of the pilots, right?
probably it was a 12,000 kilogram or 2,600 pound bomb
Holy
strapped
cow.
with 3 Type 4 Model 1 Mark 20 solid fuel rockets. Again, large bottle rockets.
So when you hit, though, I mean, it is at least a quick death.
Oh yeah, you're
Like,
you're done. You're done.
It's not
It is
like you're living through any of that.
it is a 26,000 pound bomb. You're good.
Good night.
The first Allied ship and only Allied ship that was actually known to be sunk by the Oka was on April 12th, 1945, near Okinawa. Once the rockets were ignited on the Oka, it was a very hard target to defend against because this thing would reach 400 miles per hour. However, prior to the rockets being launched, it was pretty much a sitting duck and needed to be within 20 miles of its designated target prior to being released. So if you could get these bombers like anywhere near the target, you're fine. The first use of this was on April 1st, 1945, when 6 Okas were launched against the U.S. fleet, with one hitting a designated target of the battleship West Virginia, which it hit the battery, like the gun emplacement, but it was fine.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, that sucks, but I'm still able to float.
I mean, so really they made things that were just harder to steer than airplanes and not really much more effective at destroying what they hit.
Pretty much. A total of 852 of these would be produced during the war, and the U.S. gave them the nickname of Baka, which means idiot in Japanese, which seems super appropriate.
Oh, man. Imagine being one of the pilots, though.
That wants to fly the idiot?
Well, that flies it and then doesn't make an impact with hitting it.
Yeah, because most...
I mean, not that you care at that point anymore, but like, if you're gonna sacrifice your life, you at least want it to be for something.
Yeah, because most of these rockets would actually be shot down prior to hitting anything, or would crash,
or hit,
missing the target prior to hitting anything.
Oh, can you imagine the last second of your life being like, shit, I just missed that? Like, you know how it feels when you miss an exit driving in a car.
This is I missed an exit driving a car, and now I'm dead.
Oh, now you're ruined. But now it's not that. It's you miss an exit, and
it's not a 20-minute inconvenience. It's I'm dead
for nothing.
For nothing.
Because you knew you were dead going into that,
but you're dead.
But now you're dead for absolutely no good reason.
So our next weapon of choice here is the rail guns of Nazi Germany, or specifically the German heavy Gustav, which is the Rungenwald siege artillery Nazi Germany production.
Are these similar to the rail guns from Doom?
No.
Oh.
These are literal rail, like they are on train tracks.
Oh, okay.
Large heavy artillery pieces.
I was picturing like shooting rail spikes.
No, this is
that would have been cool.
This is a large, super large, gigantically large piece of artillery on a train track.
That is relegated to wherever the train tracks are going.
Yes.
Okay. So to avoid this gun,
just don't
be
go by a train track. Yep.
Seems easy enough.
So
if you want to find this gun and destroy it,
look for train tracks.
Look for the train tracks.
Yep.
Okay.
So the gun that we're specifically talking about is a Schwer Gustav, which was the large Gustav, which was designated by the Krupp family, or designed by the Krupp family, and the Ruggenwald section of Germany in early 1930s, and was to be used to destroy the main forts of the French Maginot Line. Okay. So after World War I, France realized, hey, maybe we want to have some defenses against the crazy Germans. So we built an entire defensive system called the Maginot Line.
Yeah, right
along the French-German border.
Do they have train tracks all along that border too?
I think they do, John.
Better hope so.
I guess. You better hope so. So in the 1930s, keep in mind this was still during the early, the Weimar Republic. They weren't supposed to make a military because we don't want a World War II happening here.
Right. Yeah.
And
Germany, we just got through with the first one. We don't want to do this again.
And Hitler took power in 1932 and was like, hey, look, if we want to go to war with France, maybe we should have something to destroy the Maginot Line.
If we were going to perhaps end up one day in a situation where maybe we will be invading France. How might we
do this? So in 1934, German High Command commissioned the Krupp family to design a cannon capable of destroying the Maginot Line. But that's kind of completely against the whole Treaty of Versailles when they're like not supposed to make new shit. Yeah. They're not supposed to have a standing army. Yeah, but they're like, we're going to do it anyway.
What if we repurpose some old stuff?
Yeah, who's going to stop us?
We just took this other thing that killed people and made it different.
So the cannon specifications called for the ability for one shell to penetrate 7 meters of reinforced concrete or 1 full meter of reinforced steel armored plate from beyond the range of the French defenses.
Holy shit.
So it's a huge
tall order.
That's a tall order. So Krupp drew up plans for a 70 centimeter, 80 centimeter, 85 centimeter, and 1 millimeter gun. But in 1934, nothing really happened. Nothing was designed. Nothing was actually produced until 1936, when Hitler himself visited the Krupp facilities to inquire about the feasibility of the giant gun even being built to begin with. Like, hey, look, is this even possible? Krupp was like, yep, sure is. Give me the money and I can do it.
He showed up as the bully. You can't do this. I know you can't do it. Yeah, I can. Shut up, Hitler. Let me try.
And so Hitler was like, look, I'm not going to give you a definite commitment. I'm not going to say you should do it. But
if you did.
But if you did, I'll totally pay you for it.
Probably you won't end up in one of these camps that I've been thinking about.
Nope, you won't end up in one of those camps.
Got good ideas for those, by the way.
So there was an 80 centimeter gun that was built for testing. Okay. The gun would be developed by the Schwer Gustav company. It will be nicknamed Schwer Gustav. It weighed in at a...
Germans were very clever, weren't they?
They were super clever. It weighed in at a total of 1,350 tons. So fucking huge. What? This thing is ridiculous.
1,300 tons?
1,350 tons. Tons.
That's a lot.
It was 155 feet 2 inches long, with a barrel of 106 feet 8 inches long.
155 feet long. Half a football field.
Yeah, this thing's huge.
That was.
Huge. It was 230 feet 4 inches wide, with a height of 34 feet 1 inch tall.
How did this fit on any rails?
It had to have a special carriage built for it.
Well, right, but rails go through mountains.
Yeah, this wasn't going through a mountain, Johnny. This thing was just
This was
stupid.
A very specific where it's going to be able to be
This was stupid. It had an 80 centimeter bore or 31.5 inch bore. And it's the largest combat caliber firearm ever to be produced.
I mean, it would have
This thing is stupid.
That's insane.
It would fire a 15,700 pound armored piercing projectile at a whopping 2,400 feet per second at 42,000 yards.
Holy shit.
This thing could shoot shit miles away.
But could it make it through a meter of steel?
First test in late 1939 was successful and was able to penetrate 7 meters of concrete and 1 meter of reinforced steel.
So it did
what they asked to do.
Jesus.
Which the thing's the size of a small city block. It should do what it's asked to do.
Pretty normal sized city block, I think.
It's pretty fucking huge. Testing finished in 1941 with 2 guns being ordered. But France actually at this point had already surrendered, and the Germany Blitzkrieg had been successful going through Belgium, circumventing the Maginot Line, preventing the whole need for this gun to begin with anyways.
Don't you just hate it when you spend all this time building a very specific thing to break down a door just to find out that the fence around the side is unlocked?
And that's exactly what happened. Other downfalls of this specific gun was that the reload time was atrocious. It took 30 to 45 minutes with an average of 14 rounds per day. So this thing was slow to fire.
Well, yeah. I mean, to be fair though, the people making it are probably like, if you're firing this thing, you don't
You're
have to shoot it
firing a
fast.
15,000-pound
Yeah,
projectile.
the shock of whoever that hits the people around that
It's going to be enough.
is going to be enough to give you the time to reload.
It's going to be enough. Other downfalls of the long reload time was also that it took at least a 250-man crew to operate.
250?
250 men would to operate and would take at least 3 days to assemble the gun in place to be able to fire. So on best case scenario, it would take 250 men, 3 days to assemble the gun to fire the first round.
But how could it possibly take 250 men?
This thing is...
I understand how big it is.
15,000-pound...
How many working parts? Why would it take that many people to operate it?
I don't...
Like, to build it,
I
to
don't
put
know.
it together, to assemble it, sure.
That's the numbers I came up with, Johnny. I don't know.
Jiminy
It also
Christmas.
took 2 flak battalions to protect the gun from air attack because obviously you're a
you
sitting
can
duck.
see it. Yeah.
You're huge. You're a sitting duck. You might need some air defense.
Hey, what's that big thing that looks like a gun that's half the size of that football stadium?
And one gun cost 7 million Reichsmarks, or $49,509,974 today.
Okay, but more importantly, how many francs?
God, damn it, Johnny! I didn't look it up. 7
I mean,
million
eventually they're
7
going to end up
million
paying for it anyway, right?
7 million Reichsmarks in 1941.
Okay, that's a good amount.
Or $49 million today
Okay.
in US dollars. And it's an expensive weapon.
But you figure with a weapon like that, whoever you are shooting it at, you just make them pay for it when all's said and done.
True.
Like,
so the Schwer Gustav would be shipped to the Eastern Front after, obviously the French retreated and surrendered to fight the dirty commies. And it did see action against the siege of Sevastopol. So I've got the entire breakdown of what it did during the siege of Sevastopol. So first off, it took 4,000 men 5 weeks to actually get the gun in firing position. 4,000 men, 5 weeks to get the gun operational.
So you got to figure they're shipping piece by piece by piece and then having to assemble.
I'd imagine, yes.
And that's why you're getting those numbers of, like, it's not like 4,000 people walking and carrying it into place. It's
I'd imagine.
It's a bunch of little bits of pieces.
Once assembled, it took 500 men to actually fire the damn thing.
That's insane.
Which is ridiculous. On June 5th, it became operational. 8 shells were fired at Fort Stalin.
That's like a whole half a day.
That's a half a day for 8 shells. On June 6th, 7 shells were fired at Fort Molotov and White Cliff, which was an ammunition mountain, which would wind up being destroyed. It was 30 meters under the sea level with 10 meters of reinforced concrete. So it went through basically 40 meters of depth.
Yeah.
And it just blew the shit out of the ammunition factory. So,
damn.
Hey, it does its job.
Yeah, that sounds like it worked.
If
only you could make it more
efficient,
portable.
On June 7th, it operated as fire support for the infantry. On June 11th, it knocked out Fort Siberia. On June 17th, which was the last day of operation, it bombarded the fortresses of Maxim Gorky. There was 2 fortresses there, one being destroyed, the second one being heavily damaged, 5 shells total being fired on June 17th.
So this sounds like one of the more successful ridiculous weapons. Like, it actually saw
had
some
combat.
Successes,
Yes.
And it was ludicrously big.
It's ludicrously big and hard to operate. Yes, that's the
really,
stupidity of this one. Yes, when in operation, it did its job.
Right.
But
yeah, I mean, it's nice when things do what you want them to do, but when they do it at a cost that is way more inconvenient than doing it a different way, it's not exactly helpful.
Exactly. The siege of Sevastopol itself was a success for the Germans, and Gustav would wind up being moved to attack Leningrad, the city of Leningrad, but was not set up in time for the attack to be to happen.
Yeah.
And the attack was eventually called off because, Stalingrad didn't go so well for the Germans, and they wound
Yeah.
up retreating.
Uh-huh.
So the gun would actually wind up being retreated to Germany or to German borders. And on April 14th, 1945, the gun would be destroyed before the U.S. troops would be able to capture it because, we don't want the dirty U.S. soldiers to get a hold of this wonder weapon
Yeah.
or
Yeah, because
gigantic
they might
kind
want,
of hassle.
they might want to use this small city block on wheels.
All right, Johnny. So another thing that we got for you is the Fugu balloon bomb.
The what?
The Fugu
Is this a Japanese?
Japanese Fugu balloon bomb, which was
Okay.
developed for the Imperial Japanese Army.
Okay, I like the sound of this.
Fugu.
Balloons are notoriously controllable.
Sure are. So the Fugu or fire balloon was a secret Japanese weapon that would rain hellfire down on the western U.S. coastline and demand that the U.S. soldiers would surrender, which they didn't because this was pure garbage.
So they wanted to. Okay, so this is balloons.
Balloons.
Hot air people balloons, or just
hot air unmanned balloons.
Balloon.
Hot balloons carrying bombs,
and they
rain havoc on the western coast of the United States.
So they are just going to release them from ships with air currents and then let them go.
Hope for the best.
Hope that they fall right where you want them to fall and cause the havoc that you want them to cause.
Yep. So the idea there, Johnny, you hit the nail on the head, was to send a hydrogen balloon made of paper carrying a bomb along with a jet stream from Japan to the western coast of the United States. So we'll just release a bunch of these paper balloons, hope that they make it to the United States, and hope that they hit targets of importance.
Well, to be fair, Asia's been doing that with her pollution, and it's worked.
Yeah, well, when their nuclear factory went up with an earthquake, we were all concerned about California getting radiated.
Yep.
But, screw California, because who cares about them?
I mean.
So the Fugu would carry either a 33-pound anti-personnel bomb or one 26-pound incendiary bomb with the addition of 4 11-pound incendiary bombs. So you'd have 5 bombs on the balloon.
Okay.
And the balloons would detonate upon the balloon crash landing. So wherever the balloon happens to land, the bombs would detonate.
Just hopefully. And hopefully they make it
to the United States, and hopefully they make it to something of importance.
The ocean. Yeah, and happen to hit somewhere. Like, what?
There's a lot of hope on this one.
My God. What they needed to do was team up with Germany with their little air cannons, get on their little boats outside,
and shoot the air cannon
at the balloon so you can steer it and guide the balloons into buildings with the air cannons.
That would have been a better plan, Johnny, but they didn't do that.
Those idiots.
They
should have had me in the meeting rooms.
Right.
I would have figured it out.
So 3 balloon battalions were formed. The first battalion was 1,500 men with 9 launch stations at Otsu. The second battalion was 700 men operating 6 launch stations at Ichomiya, Chiba.
Do you think these people in these launch stations felt as stupid as they must have?
No, they felt pride. I guarantee you they felt pride, Johnny. They knew that they were doing
I get to put these bombs on this helium balloon or hydrogen balloon and just let it go.
And hope for the best.
And then we'll find out in a week? How long does it take for a balloon to fly to the United States from Japan?
We'll get there, Johnny. And the third battalion was 600 men operating 6 launch stations at Nakosa.
So it sounds like they're just spreading their numbers and they're like, we're going to just
hope for the best.
it.
Yeah, that's exactly what they did. And effectively, though, this was the first intercontinental capable weapon. So it was the first weapon that was quote unquote capable of distributing destruction to another continent.
Capable.
Theoretically. Yeah, theoretically is the important part there, Johnny.
Which I'm also going to kind of call bogus on because technically from Europe to Asia, you could fire a weapon.
Well, you can fire a pistol from Europe to Asia.
That's cross-continent.
I think it meant ocean continent.
Over an ocean. All right, whatever.
Anyways, the initial test took place on September 1944 and proved satisfactory enough
What they floated and didn't come back down and blow up Japan?
Yeah, so they're like, good enough.
Basically, yeah, well, that definitely worked.
And there was a sentiment of revenge because by September 1944, U.S. B-29 bombers had been able to reach mainland Japan and had started bombing Tokyo and
Yeah.
other targets of interest. So they're like, we gotta fight off our homeland because the U.S. are bombing us. So we'll send balloons to them.
There we go.
Fuck you.
Ha!
Ah,
Deal with that.
The first balloon was released on November 3rd, 1944. And on November 4th, 1944, a U.S. Navy patrol was the first to observe one of these balloons floating off the coast of Los Angeles. So basically a day to get to Los Angeles. So not too bad.
But they released one?
Well, that was the first one that was released and observed.
Okay.
So they released more than one.
Seems like if you're going to do this right, you release these by the hundreds.
Oh, they just shot that shit out of the air too, by the way, Johnny.
Well, yeah, I know. That's why you do it by the hundreds.
So but after this, the national and state agencies were placed on heightened alert status when balloons were found not only in California but also in Wyoming, Montana, by the end of November. So they did release lots of balloons, and some were found in Wyoming and Montana. Balloons were ultimately found total in the entire scheme of this whole thing. Balloons would be found in Alaska, Alberta, Canada, Arizona, British Columbia, Canada, California, Colorado, Hawaii, Idaho, Iowa, Kansas, Mexico, Michigan, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, North Dakota, Oregon, South Dakota, Texas, and Utah, Washington, Wyoming, and the Yukon Territory.
So really all they did, well, and they didn't even really do it, but if they put trackers on it, all they did was track wind patterns over the United States.
Yes. Pretty much.
And so if they found these, did they find them when they detonated, or did
No,
they have a bunch
they just found
that
them.
Didn't work?
They didn't work, Johnny. They
got
found
tangled
them.
up in trees and didn't hit hard enough to
They found
detonate
them. Yep, they sure shit found them. A total of 9,300 balloons would be released during this entire project. So, what went wrong, right? 9,300 balloons. Something's got to hit something, right?
You would think so.
So, first, Japan only predicted that 10% would even make it to the United States.
Sure,
they knew right off the bat that 10% was going to make it.
It's good that they at least had some sort
of reason,
sobriety when it comes to thinking about how it's going to work.
A total of 300 bombs would be discovered between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. So not quite that 10% mark.
No, yeah.
Pure luck if they actually wound up hitting anything. And then, unfortunately, only 200 total could be launched per day, but only a 50-day window would be available during the winter months to take advantage of the jet stream.
Because
so you have a 50-day window of hope in 1944, 1945. Let's hope for the best.
Man, if they actually did explode, though, and they just put out maximum balloons, could you imagine how horrifying it would be to just all over the United States just start being peppered,
randomly bombed
with balloons?
It was a potential idea, yes.
No, it would all have to work, and they had to do it on a much larger scale than they did, because it has to cause serious panic to do anything. Because then, even if you shoot it down, you shoot it down into blowing up somewhere else. So I could see where the thought process came with this, but the execution was just kind of half-hearted.
Yeah. It didn't work, and it didn't work, and it didn't work.
Well, yeah, and
there were minor fires caused by the incendiary bombs in mountain regions and forest regions, but nothing that the local fire departments couldn't
They caused some minor inconveniences and got rid of some brush fires in the forest that just needed to happen anyway, probably.
Pretty much. But there was one confirmed casualty report that occurred.
A mule?
No, it's more than a mule.
Oh,
actually, it's kind of a little sad, to be honest, but...
Well, I mean, it's a casualty.
Yeah. So it occurred on May 5th, 1945 in southern Oregon. A pregnant woman and 5 children that accompanied her were killed when they discovered the balloon bomb that had landed in the forest near Gerhardt Mountain, but had not exploded.
Ooh, but then dead.
But then did. So what happened is Archie Mitchell, who was a pastor of the Bly Christian and Missionary Alliance Church, decided to be a good day to take his wife and several youth group, to go on a hike. So they did. They went up to the mountain and went on a hike. Archie wound up letting his wife and the children out of the car, which was nice of him, while he found a parking
What a
spot.
gentleman.
Gentleman. His wife, Elise, took the children to find a good picnic spot when they saw a strange balloon lying on the ground. So naturally, several of the teenage children who, being teenage boys, doing what teenage boys do, decided it would be a good idea to kick said balloon, which resulted in 2 heavy explosions.
Oof.
The boys were killed instantly, with Alicia dying in her husband's arms as he frantically tried to extinguish the flames on her clothes. So she was on fire. He tried to extinguish her. She wound up dying in his arms.
Ooh.
One child out of the entire group did wind up surviving the initial blast.
Oh, but why?
But would die several days later due to wounds.
I mean, I'm sorry. I know it's awful that death, but if my entire rest of my family dies during an event, I don't want to live.
Yeah, so the only person who wound up living in this entire event was the husband himself. The wife and 5 children who accompanied on the hike did wind up dying.
Yeah, that would have been the end of me too.
Yeah, so that was yeah, so that was the only incident of death, and it was more of a whoopsie as opposed to a bomb doing what it did. They kicked the bomb.
It's someone stepping on a landmine that happened to be buried somewhere. That's what it is. It's not an act of war that was successful. It was leftover shit that somebody had an accident with.
It sure wasn't, Johnny. And my last, but not least, it's an honorable mention, Johnny, because it's not really a weapon himself, but Hitler himself. Screw him. He pretty much was the worst weapon in World War II.
Well, he weaponized language.
He was just a fucking idiot, Johnny.
Well, he was an asshole.
So I've got 2 major points here real quick, and I'll wrap it up. But first, let's decide to attack Russia in July 1940 for no fucking reason when we're still operating campaigns against Britain and in Africa. So, look, we'll go ahead and open up a third front with Russia because they were an ally, but screw them, we want more land. It made no sense.
Well, I mean, do you not understand what world domination is, Tommy?
I guess, Johnny.
It's the world.
Well, what people don't remember is Russia at this point they weren't really an ally with Nazi Germany, but they had a non-aggression pact with Nazi Germany.
It was kind of more the enemy of my enemy, or friend of my enemy is my friend, or enemy of my enemy is a friend, or whatever that is.
Yeah, at the beginning of the war, both Russia and Germany decided to split Poland in half.
Yeah.
So Germany wasn't happy with half of Poland. They wanted the other half of Poland.
Yeah, anytime anybody's like, "Oh, we'll split it and share," it's going to end up poorly.
And not to mention, have you been? I know you haven't been to Poland, but
I've not. No.
It's not. Poland's not worth fighting over. I don't understand why Poland has always been the center of so many wars over the years. It's not worth it, dude.
Central location, maybe?
Good location? I don't know.
Location,
it's not a good... Location? It's not location. There's nothing there. It's Poland.
They have people, though, right?
They got some farmland, I guess.
People that you can enslave?
Maybe.
Have work for you?
Well, he didn't like the Jews, though. He killed them, so...
Or enslaved them if they were able to work.
Yeah, but he didn't enslave them. He just killed them.
No. They worked in their concentration camps, too, though.
Half-heartedly.
Well, and then if they didn't, they died. What?
He
gave them the chance
Fine, Johnny.
to work. And if they didn't want to, fine,
there was
the gas chamber.
There was that sign above Auschwitz, Arbach might frei, which is, work for something you're free.
There you go.
So his other big stupid mistake was that he went ahead and declared war on the United States after Pearl Harbor because that made sense. Yeah. Japan attacked the United States, so I'm going to go ahead and declare war on them too because reasons.
I mean, that's a pissing contest right there.
It's a pissing contest.
That's all that is. You're going to poke that bear? Watch this. I'm going to do it even harder.
I'm going to poke that bear too. And that bear is able to produce 50 Sherman tanks to my one tiger. Oh. Okay, that makes sense. Let's poke that bear.
That's a big bear, turns out.
That bear did not go well, along with the Russian bear, which is even more people.
Yeah. Well, in the Russian winters, too,
I'm pretty sure Russia had more people than Germany had bullets.
Yeah, well, there was a thing, I think it was with China, though, where if you lined up just the Chinese population and just had them walking at a American machine gun or whatever, by the time you got through all of the people, their next generation would be 18 and old enough to go. And like it's just this
Yeah.
continuous
Oh yeah.
line,
You're
because
never gonna. Yeah.
their
You're never gonna win.
numbers are just they
So,
have so much more
For the
numbers than we do.
coronavirus, don't fight China.
Don't fight. I mean, just in general. I mean, isn't that one of the things? You don't fight a land war in Asia or something?
Yeah, that is. Yeah, you. Hey, you know what?
It's a rule from
I
something,
am
right?
super impressed with you, Johnny.
I don't
That
know what
actually,
it's from, but
no, it is a legitimate. Like, no, that's a legitimate thing. Don't fight a land war in Asia.
Oh,
or
there you
something
go.
like that.
Yeah.
You definitely, because there's so many people.
I'm learning.
You are learning, Johnny. I appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Historic Hindsight. Every week, we take a look at some of the major events that took place during this week in a segment that we like to call This Week in History.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
All right, Johnny. So first up, I got the English King Charles II issues a test act excluding the Roman Catholics from public office on March 29th-ish, 1673.
So what does that do?
So it says if you're a Roman Catholic, screw you. You
That's-
can't be a part of the government.
You just don't get to.
You don't get to do shit.
represent-
So the Texas declared that that none but people taking communion in the established Church of England would be eligible for public employment. So basically, if you're not a part of the Church of England, screw you, go home.
Yeah, you don't get a job.
Yeah, the Church of England was established in 1534, so, like a 80-year-old church, good job. It also...
So did that go over well?
yeah, well, yeah,
People like that?
it's England. They love their Church of England because that
Okay.
let them get a divorce whenever they wanted, as opposed to having to have a reason like the Catholic Church made you have.
Yeah, that was super annoying.
It's super annoying, especially for, who was that? Henry VIII or whatever?
I'm Henry VIII.
I am Henry. Anyways, it also proposed severe penalties against recusants, which were those that lived in England, Wales, and Ireland that refused to attend the Anglican services, which were the Church of England
Yeah.
services.
Yeah.
So basically, if you weren't, not only you couldn't be public service, but we're going to punish you if you're not.
Yeah.
English.
So, like these kind of little seedlings that were being planted is probably why when the United States was born, we had a strict separation of church and state.
Could be part of it, Johnny. Could
I
be
think
part of
these
it.
Might be some of those early seeds. In
Might be some of those seeds, yep. Punishments included fines, property confiscation, and imprisonment.
Yeah.
Although a lot of these laws were not enforced on nonconformists, so basically if you were an atheist, through the acts of what were called the indemnity. But those dirty Catholics, look, you can be an atheist, but you can't be a Catholic.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
We really don't want you to be Catholic.
Yeah. I mean, really, this was enforced on whoever you wanted to. It was a law that was put in place to give reason to be,
To be enforced in whatever,
Yeah.
when you wanted. Yep, exactly.
whatever racist against religions is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This act stems from
Secularist.
a fake plot known as the Popish plot, which was was an alleged plot by the Catholics against the Church of England, which never fucking existed. Pure propaganda, just bullshit. But they're like, hey, because this fake this fake plot exists, Catholics are out of here.
There we go. That's all you need. A little bit of fear.
Weird. It's like what's going on today. In 1678, the act was further to include both houses of the government, but language was greatly reduced, including the exemption of the future King James II, who was the head of the Catholic nobility at the time. So we forgot that we still have some royal blood that is Catholic.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, but not him. It's
Not
fine.
him.
He's fine.
He's fine. He's cool because he's, related to me.
And I like that they said he's fine. And I mean, I'm sure they didn't really have a reason, but surely the reasons that the Catholics were bad was religious based because of
No,
their
just this plot.
religious beliefs.
Well, yeah, because they can't
Was
let,
there-
they
and-
couldn't let Henry VIII divorce, John.
Right. Well, and now they have this other guy. They're like, oh, but he's fine. We don't know why though.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it doesn't make sense that he's fine. Is what I'm saying. Like, he doesn't suddenly lack whatever the rest of the Catholics lack. They're just like, we messed up. And
Yeah, pretty much.
he's fine, I guess.
After 1800, the acts were seldom enforced, except at the University of Cambridge and Oxford, where nonconformists and Catholics were not able to graduate. You could attend the school, you could do everything you need to graduate, but we're not going to actually let you graduate. So the next thing, Johnny, I got for you is that the first commercially built U.S. computer is purchased by the U.S. government on March 31st, 1951.
Oh yeah, this is one of those room-sized ones, right?
It is
The
a
big
room-sized
boys?
one. It's called a UNIVAC, or a Universal
Wait, that's-
Automatic.
That's like a vacuum
Yeah,
cleaner. Sounds more
UNIVAC.
like.
Yeah, UNIVAC, Universal Automatic Computer 1. It was sold.
Wait, that was a bit. Was UNIVAC supposed to be an acronym?
Yeah, it's an acronym, but it
But
doesn't
that's
work.
not how acronyms work.
No, it doesn't. It's not
one
even
letter per. It's not.
It's not how it works, but it was
They
an
just
acronym.
shortened some words and slapped some things together.
They sure
That
did.
was terrible. Okay,
It
well,
was. It
I,
was.
mean, I guess they didn't have to get good marketing
No, they sure
department
did.
because they're like, we have the only one. Do you want it or not?
It was sold to the United States Census Bureau for a grand total of $159,000, or equivalent to $1.587 million today,
For a counting machine.
for an accounting machine. Yes.
Like
Way
I'm
to-
guessing it did very basic
it
things.
like what our calculator could
It's
do on our
like-
phone.
Yeah, well, probably not even that.
Probably not even that. No.
I'm guessing like a 4-function calculator.
Yep.
It can keep track of numbers.
Way to spend our tax dollars, jackasses.
Yeah, I mean, it's the new thing, you know?
The computer itself would be dedicated on June 14th, 1951, but not actually shipped until 1952, as this was the only working model and was needed for demonstrations, Johnny. We needed it for, for advertisement.
Oh, that's perfect. Oh, you want to buy this? Oh, you do? Oh, we didn't
Wow.
expect such a rush. We only have the one. So we're going to show this to other people, and then we'll give it to you in a year.
Yep,
Is that cool?
sure
All right.
enough. It was designed by J. Presper Eckert and John Malkley, the inventors of the ENAC machine, which was the electronic numerical integrator and computer. So
Okay,
at least
that's
they
more
actually
of
got
an acronym.
Yeah, they got that. Yeah. It essentially is a giant calculator capable of simple mathematical calculations and was designed to replace the punch card machines. However, it could neither read nor print punch cards, and the potential buyers were hesitant on the machine as they didn't want to have to manually input all the punch cards from previous systems.
I mean, isn't that kind of the issue we have with anytime we transfer to a new system? Like, that's what interns are for.
Yeah.
You hire interns to update your old records and enter them into your new system. I had to do that when I was interning at Roche. I had to enter a bunch of stuff from one system to another.
Well, they didn't want to even bother with unpaid
I don't
interns,
blame them.
Johnny.
What a pain in the ass. I'm sure it was even worse back then with friggin' punch cards.
I'm sure it was. A later offline punch card processing parallel was added so that, it could read the punch cards.
Such alliteration. What was it? What was that?
A offline, so
Yeah.
because internet doesn't exist
Of
yet.
course, everything's offline.
Punch card processing parallel. Parallel is like a port on the computer that you
Yeah.
could like add on, like so
Uh-huh.
if you want a CD drive. It's
Yeah,
parallel
okay, yeah,
port.
another one.
That was added later because they're like, maybe we do want to have something to be able to read these punch
An
cards.
external punch card drive.
Yep. To promote sales, the UNIVAC teamed up with CBS to predict the 1952 presidential election. The UNIVAC computer correctly predicted that Eisenhower would win over Stevenson, but CBS didn't believe the result, so they said that the machine wasn't working.
See, that's brilliant. As a marketing play, you got a 50-50 shot at it.
Right?
And so if you just, you got a 50-50 chance at everybody being like, this is the most amazing thing in the world. Or the alternative is, oh shoot, we realized we messed something up, so let's fix our algorithm.
But CBS fucked it up.
Oh yeah.
CBS fucked it up, and they later recanted and said, "Look, we admit to our tomfoolery. The machine was working normally. It did predict Eisenhower. We apologize," and the machine became famous. A total of 46 machines were built and delivered, with the final machine selling to the U.S. government for $1.5 million, or the equivalent of $14,975,228.51 today.
I mean, they waste money on way stupider things than a computer.
Well, this was a shitty computer that they wasted a shit ton of money on.
I mean, how much does an airplane cost the government, though? Like, isn't it like $1.5 billion
Yeah,
or some bullshit like that?
Fair enough, probably. All right, Johnny, our final thing for this week is that Woodrow Wilson would ask the Congress for a declaration of war against Germany on April 2nd, 1917.
It's a big one.
It's a big one.
That's
That's
okay.
important.
I
It's a
see
big
why
one.
you saved it for the end.
I did save it for the end. Woodrow Wilson would completely ignore his campaign promises of 1916 to keep
What?
the U.S. out of the war.
A
and say-
politician?
yeah.
Ignoring
he's
his
like-
campaign
His
promises?
whole campaign was, we're not going to get involved in this. And then immediately, on April 2nd, 1917, like 4 months after being elected, yep, we're getting into war.
Well, things changed though. I'm sure.
Sure did, Johnny. Kinda. He justified his support for the war due to the continued use of German unrestricted U-boat attacks on commercial vessels. He cited the sinking of the USS Lusitania, which actually sunk in 1915 before Germany even promised to stop U-boats altogether. So merited.
Yeah. All right.
And for Germany attempting to encourage Mexico to declare war on the United States. So that one has merit. Lusitania, not so much.
I don't know why. But
Germany.
every time you bring up the fact that Germany tried to get Mexico to declare war on the United States as part of it just cracks me
Yeah,
up.
it's called the Zimmerman telegraph, which was England caught the Zimmerman telegraph to Mexico, which was basically like, hey, look, if you fight the United States, we promise any territory
Yeah.
you gain, we'll let you keep. But Mexico's like, yeah, they totally destroyed us.
Well, I
in the
like Mexico
Mexican-American
just sitting
War.
there and like getting a graph or whatever from Germany and be like, oh, something's coming through. Oh, okay, read it. What is it? They're like, they want us to declare war on the United States. But why?
We'll pay for it.
I don't know.
They'll pay for it, Johnny.
Like, did they get the memo for what happened last time?
They did.
No.
Apparently, Germany did
No.
not get that memo
It didn't go
because
well.
it did not go well for Mexico.
Like,
Shit,
And
Texas,
and the United States, they just keep getting bigger.
Texas
like,
itself,
They're growing.
Texas,
Yeah.
Texas, one state defeated Mexico,
Oh, you
let
mean-
alone the whole country.
You mean North Mexico?
Well, okay, whatever. North Mexico defeated Mexico. You're right. It was North Mexico at that point, but they defeated Mexico, Johnny.
Yeah, they took it to them. Yeah, and we're way bigger than the last time we fought them.
We certainly were. We also had the whole like Pancha Villa campaign. Although to be fair, that was kind of an embarrassment for us, but that's beside the point. Anyways, Congress would actually wind up approving the recommendations for the declaration of war and declare war against Germany on April 6th, 1917. And later that year, they would wind up deciding, Austria-Hungary, fuck them too. We're going to declare war on them as well.
And that's This Week in History.